How you doing, Mr. Crowe?
I'm doing good. Things are good.
Right on. I think, did you already hit record, Candy? I apologize for just jumping into it. Um, but if you don't mind, man, I'm pretty excited. I would like to just jump into it.
Go ahead.
JD Crowe, you've been tattooing, you've been an icon in this industry. How long has it been now since you've been tattooing?
Uh, just about 50 years. Started in 1976 is when I printed my first business card. Ni-
Okay. Was that a big
1970.
deal then? Having a
Uh,
business card kind of,
yeah, yeah, of course it was. I mean, there was no other means of getting the word out. You
right.
know, there was no social media. So yeah, the handing out your business card, meant a lot.
I love it that you remember the date the first time you printed
Yeah,
yours. Did you
yeah.
say it was 76? Is that
Seven,
what I'm
76, correct. But I started an informal apprenticeship in 74.
better? I like that better because that's the year I was born. You have been tattooing as long as I have been alive.
There you go.
Which I know that probably doesn't sound, but it makes me feel younger. So
Huh.
I'm happy there. I'm sticking
Yeah,
it out.
makes me feel older.
Well, I hope it makes you feel like a fucking legend in the industry and somebody whose longevity. It's not common that anybody worked anywhere for 50 years in
Yeah.
any industry. And you're still quite a you're we're about to have, I don't know what annual it is, I should know, but I bet you could tell me. The Richmond Tattoo Convention, which you're a part of. How long has that been going?
The first one was 1988. And so this is the 35th year. It's actually in the same hotel that it
Mhm.
was in 1988. I,
Is there much nostalgia there then going back?
uh, you know,
It all looks
conventions were
different.
so much different back then. It was you had to go, you know. That's where you met. That was your whole social media thing. That was Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. I mean,
Mhm.
it was all there for you. And the guys that didn't go, they were just stale. They became a product of their own environment. Uh, but getting out to these conventions was a real big deal.
I I've talked with you about this. I think it was in Pittsburgh. I don't know. I feel like it was one of Greg Piper's shows. First time run into you,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I was really impressed with where the tattoo conventions were. And I was like, "Did you think you would see it like this?" And you actually gave me quite a history lesson on the actual heyday of tattooing and what it was like. Was it in San Diego? It was in California, I believe, where they had to shut down the road for all the people
yeah,
traveling there. The
yeah.
highway.
That was 1993, San Diego. It was I had started Tattoo Tour, which was uh, conventions that were I put on for the next 10 years with Dennis Dwyer. But in
Is
1993,
that, I'm sorry to cut you off, but another icon, Dennis Dwyer from Precision Tattoo, the same guy?
same guy. Yep.
He
Also,
and his wife were, if I'm not mistaken, just south of Michigan or in South Michigan. Is that right?
no, wrong.
Mm,
They were in
okay.
Tucson. They're,
Okay. Way
they were
off,
in,
Kyle.
yeah, yeah, not even close. Tucson, Arizona. And back in 82, I started Ancient Art Tattoo Studio with Danny Fowler.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, another name.
Another huge, there's a lot of people listening. I'm going to keep stopping you on this. I apologize. But to me, these names are friggin' huge. I'm sure you understand. There's many people listening, I imagine, that have no idea who Danny Fowler was. But Danny Fowler is the reason I shoved steel wool into my coils to
Danny,
fill that cavity that is inside of it to make a better magnetism. No idea if it worked or not, but every time I took apart a machine, and I was like, "Hey, there's no steel wool in here." Fixed it.
uh-huh. Yeah, Danny was quite a tinkerer. And I was
Yes.
pretty fortunate to work with him. We actually, like I said, we started Ancient Art, and Ancient Art expanded over the years. And Dennis Dwyer actually opened an Ancient Art in Tucson.
Okay.
So when I
Is-
did the convention in '93, the reason I did it, now you got to think back, there were only one and two tattoo conventions back then,
Okay.
period, in the United States. There was just a couple of going on.
Was it one on the East Coast, one on the West, kind of a
They
thing?
kind of bounced around. I mean, you had the Richmond show, which stayed in the same place in '98 and '9, and I did the '89 one, but then I moved to New Orleans, and just I bounced around and realized I wasn't coming back to Richmond. That's when I passed the torch to Billy Eason.
Big
But
name.
in
Another one.
'93 at the time, there were no conventions planned on the continental United States. Zero. National, who was a big
Supplier.
player and a player in the convention business, they did one every year since
Okay.
back, I think, in '78. Their
Had they dropped off
convention,
that year? As
no,
there were
their
none were planned.
what happened, the National in '93 did a convention on a boat. They sailed around the Caribbean. So it left the
That's that's highfalutin. I've tattooed on boats, but it's not easy. It,
no, and it just wasn't possible for the world to show up, which is what would
yeah.
go on at these conventions. They were worldwide conventions at the time. Travel was easier. When I did, well, anyway, back to '93 with San Diego, you were saying how busy it was. Well, the
Mhm.
state police, the California Highway Patrol, were on the interstate directing traffic to the show. We had over 10,000 people at the door just waiting to get in. It was insane.
What are most of these people? It's a newer thing, tattoo conventions then. So, what were they expecting when they were showing up?
When you say a newer thing, do you mean for the era, for the
Yeah,
'80s?
even now I get people that come to tattoo conventions that'll ask me, things like, "Are the tattoos free there?" And I'm kind of surprised at how little um, knowledge is shared about what goes on at a tattoo convention. I was curious, with this being 10,000 people, I'm guessing there's a certain amount of them that were just flocking there because the word tattoo is there as well. What were the expectations and what were they expecting to see?
Uh, most of those people were local in the
Okay.
community. You know, I mean, it was there's at the time, there aren't two or three conventions every week. This was once or twice a year. So I would tell people, the Muslims go to Mecca, the bikers go to Sturgis, the hippies went to Woodstock, and tattooers needed to go to a convention. And
I
that's
love
how it
it.
was all through the '80s and the '90s. It was a big deal. People,
Mm.
planned for 6, 8 months to go to these things.
Was nowadays it seems that people can get a lot of these. I, I'm going to try and make a comparison here, I guess, to what somebody can learn through YouTube or the internet. They a lot of times it's just kind of overlooking somebody's shoulder, seeing how their hand moves. They can do that with these videos now. Then there
Yeah,
was not that. I'm curious. It was everything then that TikTok, YouTube, and all these other sources of knowledge sharing that we have now that that it was there, I'm guessing.
yeah, and I kind of was saying that a minute ago that
Hmm.
you had to go to these places. This was all your social media rolled in one. And I mean, when I first was getting tattooed, I started it getting tattooed in the '60s. I realized by '72, that's when I was getting tattooed by Danny Fowler. That that was my start to really an apprenticeship. because I didn't want my back tattooed. I wanted my arms done and my chest and my legs so I could see what was going on, even though I had a bunch of questions that were never answered. But that was,
What? How did that go? What do you would ask the question and they would be like, "Shut up, kid," or
well, it would just probably go unanswered. I mean,
okay.
not being rude, but back then there were secrets in the business.
Hmm.
They're all gone. There's no more secrets. Now you turn on YouTube. You go to whatever, and you're
Talking with
not.
a beautiful tattoo artist yesterday, and she learned 100% on YouTube.
Yes. Well, I had to learn by sitting in somebody's tattoo studio
Hmm.
watching them.
Paying him money.
Uh, yeah, kind of. I paid my dues. I don't know if it was in money or not, but back then it was different. There were secrets. You didn't just pick up the phone and dial up National Tattoo Supply and order equipment.
Hmm.
You know, somebody had to give you the key to that kingdom. You had to be escorted in.
I had to ask a tattoo artist that I was getting tattooed from to vouch for me, if I remember correctly, for National Tattoo Supply, and I feel like it was a Dermographics Tattoo Supply back in the day as well.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Now,
how. There was only one guy that was advertising, and that was Spalding and Rogers. Uh, there weren't many suppliers. Um,
and by one guy, I think you mean more Spalding. Is that? Am I,
Spalding was one. I'm going back into the 70s and 80s now. He was the one that was doing all the advertising in the different magazines, where everybody else, you had to be invited in.
and Rogers was kind of his workhorse or technician for
No,
a lot of the advice. No, okay,
no, Paul Rogers, Huck and Paul, they worked together in Norfolk with Coleman. Then when Coleman got shut down, Paul and Huck went down to Jacksonville,
mm,
North Carolina. If I'm not mistaken, it was 740 Court Street. And I think Zeke Owen ended up taking over after they moved out. But anyways, uh, Huck gave Paul that name right in the early part of about 2 years they were together, and then Huck went up to New York without Paul. But it was out of
okay,
courtesy that Huck left Paul's name on it.
okay, because it did him a good favor as advertising still.
Well, maybe. I mean, I don't know what went through Huck's brain at the time. It was in the 50s, but
Okay.
Paul was a master machine builder. So,
Hmm.
but I don't think Paul really contributed much to the supply business, going forward once
Okay.
Huck moved to New York.
They were did I know that Rogers eventually was in Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yes, but Jacksonville, Florida.
yes, but they never really met up again after that move to New York.
Not as business partners. And I think
Okay.
Huck left the name up. I'd have to check back a little bit, but I believe after Paul passed away, Huck just became Spalding
Mhm.
Enterprise. So he did drop the Rogers name eventually.
Okay. I'm sorry to I know this isn't it's not your history, but we have it is kind of your history because of your knowledge and your proximity to it, and a lot of us in the industry don't know any history and almost don't know where to get it. So I want to
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that in any kind of capacity so that we can kind of keep up with where we, are going by knowing where we've been.
yeah. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Jesse Smith. He asked me to help him out uh, just because actually Jesse worked for me years ago. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I think he told me
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
He was doing not his style tattooing necessarily, though. Am I wrong? He
Well,
was fresh.
my shop at the time, I've always had street shops. They were walk-in street shops. You come in, you look at the wall, you got to pick the panther, you picked an
Hmm.
eagle. And Jesse was really at this time, he was way beyond that. And I actually told him that you really need to be in your own shop, doing your own style. Um, but anyways, I'm helping Jesse.
Well, that seems like it could come from one aspect. That sounds awesome, and as the regard that it must mean you had for his ability. And then at the same time, I'm trying. You put yourself in the shoes of a young kid coming in. That could be a scary proposition to even hear. Hey, you're too good. You need to take on more responsibility.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how long it took for him to get that, but I mean, eventually he did open his own shop and created his own style. Uh, I would have smothered him if I kept him, sitting at ancient art doing eagles and panthers and hearts with mom in it.
Well,
So,
that you this comes back to a core. Then I'm guessing who you are. You're an artist at heart of some sort, then, because that's not the businessman that made that decision.
uh, yeah, yeah, I guess I'll take that one. But
Or it's a very human, very humane decision to make. It shows a lot
uh,
of compassion and thought about somebody else and not your own, you know?
yeah, well, you're right. And
Okay.
that chair was easy to fill back then. So
Okay. Yeah.
it wasn't. I mean, again, this was 20 years ago, actually
Mhm.
22, I think. So again, a different era. Life changed after the iPhone came out. You know, that changed everything in the tattoo industry. It put everything in people's hands and in their pockets.
Did it somewhat change? I'm guessing it greatly changed somewhat then tattoo conventions as well.
Well, yeah, the internet, which was a little bit earlier, the iPhone came out in '07. The internet really hit with Google Images about '03. And it just, it puts so much information into people's hands. Before that, you wanted to do something, you had a convention, you had to mail stuff out.
Mhm.
You had to have newsletters. And it wasn't like you went and posted something to your 200,000 followers, you
Yeah, in
know.
a couple of seconds and get a
Yeah.
million or 100 likes and 1,000 shares or something.
Yeah. It's like, you're going to be in Richmond. I'm taking appointments, and within 10 minutes, you're booked for the whole weekend. Of 1982, you wanted to go to a convention, somebody had to mail you something. It was, or
Were
they picked.
they, and this person then was you were an event organizer?
No, not in '82.
Okay.
In '88 was the, I, in '88 was Tattoo Life magazine.
Hmm.
Helped him with his show. I put the word out to some of the big hitters at the time. I had Ed Hardy and Lyle Tuttle and Mike Malone. These were all personal friends. And, once they found out I was getting involved, uh,
Hmm.
you know, showed up out of respect. Plus, the fact that there's only a few conventions a year, so it was easy to plan.
Hmm.
But in '88, I knew that that was Tattoo Life's last convention. So me and Crazy Ace Daniels, I don't know if you heard that name.
No, that is completely new to me. So
Well,
all the other
Crazy Ace was aptly named. And him and I put on the 1989 tattoo convention.
that tells me then he is a one of a kind crazy man.
Like I said, he was aptly named. He passed away years ago, but he was one of them '70s tattooers. Uh,
Mhm.
Character, a rich history in the business.
And you and him then worked on the upcoming show to keep it going?
Yeah, we took over, and it was 1989 Richmond we did together, and then we went and did New Orleans in 1990. Ace kind of split off and did Pittsburgh on his own, and that's when I was moving to the West Coast to prepare that San Diego show. So,
The big one.
but yeah, that
Were
was
they growing exponentially at all each time that you did them to the San
uh,
Diego? I mean, I'm guessing there wasn't 10,000 people at the prior shows.
no, as they kept going, yeah. And what happened? 1993, San Diego. This crew shows up, and I knew the one guy, but they fly in with their private jet. There's like 5 or 6 people behind them with notepads and cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're making all kinds of notes. And within 6 months, this crew advertised they were going to do 6 conventions a year. So it was the downfall. I mean, it was a slow slide downhill from
I
there.
follow.
Now there's, you know, instead of 2 conventions a year, there's going to be 8 for 94. And then it eventually got so out of hand by '02 when I did my last convention. Uh, I think it cost me money to get out of that one. So,
So it changed the landscape of the industry changed that much then from the input of so much competition.
yeah, the competition in this case came from a international motorcycle magazine. Uh,
Okay. They
so they
came
were,
over, saw the success, and felt that they were already in line kind of with the mentality of the people getting tattooed now.
yeah. So they ended up, promoting. They had a magazine that was selling 1 million copies a month. So that was their social media. They had the
Mm-hmm.
output to get the word out to people.
Your social media, I should take some time to build up your story to let us know where you come from, where official tattoo brand that is your creation, or was it something you took that you were an artist with?
No, I started uh, official tattoo brand. I think it was about 87 into 88. The
Okay.
color just came out. Now,
So right around this same time, you didn't have a huge following necessarily behind you as well. Prior to that, for your tattoo conventions you were organizing.
no, I did. Because of my connection into the industry.
Let's
I
talk about that if you don't mind. Where did this come from? You must have worked in some large capacity to build a network of fellow artists or something then?
Yeah, so that was the Ancient Art Tattoo Association. At one point, I think there were 15 shops. But, just being in the industry back then, my first convention I went to was in Texas in the '70s. There might only been about 50 to 100 people there. It was nothing. But the
Mhm.
ones that were there were like Ed Hardy, Mike Malone, Jack Rudy, Charlie Cartwright, Chuck
Oh,
Eldridge.
oh,
So, I became friends with these people over
mhm.
the years. I Mike Malone worked with me and Zeke Owen worked with me. Um, you know, so
Big
I had,
names.
yeah,
Michael. Mhm.
they're big names now, but back then we were just friends. Nobody really looked at it like that. We were just in the tattoo industry. Uh, but
I'm really
um,
interested in that because sometimes I feel exactly that in my presence. I'm around people that may not have a huge status right now as people imagine, but I've already seen it through my history of traveling tattoo conventions that these sometimes small names blow up in huge popularity real quick. And and then they are the icon names, the Mike Malones, the C. Cohens.
yeah, uh, well,
It's amazing
th-
to me. I
another thing.
love it. It makes the world seem magical.
Yeah, well, I used to say it was the voodoo in tattooing, and it came
Okay.
from guys. These were the guys that see. Well, nowadays there's no heroes in the business anymore. Nobody looks up to anybody. Uh, if
Not for
they're
long.
if if they look if they're looking up, they're looking it up on Google. But
Okay.
for the most time of the time, people I see, they're looking down. They're looking down at their iPad. And I've walked into shops where they wouldn't even look up at me. They were so entranced in their work on their iPad. You know, a 35-year tattooer comes walking in their shop. Maybe you should
It's
have the decency to look up, stand up, and say thanks for what you've done. Uh,
yes.
not that I'm looking for it. I mean, I would just chuckle
Hmm.
back and walk out.
Well, I
Uh,
think it shows more, and I bet you have an understanding of this, that until they have the realization that they are standing on the shoulders of greats, then they will never be able to be or recognize their own true greatness themselves. So in my opinion, I often feel that I walk in and I feel that kind of attitude. I'm quite sure that they're holding themselves back.
yeah. Uh, well, see, they don't need anybody anymore. That's the whole thing. Back then, when I talk about this, I'm talking 70s, 80s, and 90s. There were heroes in the business. I looked up to people, and these people, we went to the conventions to sit around and shoot the crap about what was going on, what was good. Man, look at this stuff that Hardy's doing, or damn, Don Nolan did this thing here. Look at how did he get that? That was what was going on. And uh, now, I don't know. You know, Back then, somebody could come to a convention, disrobe, and there's a full Don Nolan bodysuit, and the air would leave the room. I don't see anything going on today that takes the air out of a room.
Mhm.
There's nothing that's. I mean, they're brilliant tattoos. They're great tattooers, but there's nothing exciting.
We're as a people, then I'm guessing, a little less impressed. And I think I see that. Sometimes I see pieces that I will jaw drop over walking, and not just pieces, like whole bodysuits where you recognize this is one artist that's worked on this person. They have a huge relationship, at least they should, because they've been so close in every part of their time and spent together. So it's jaw dropping. You really want to look at it, but other people around are doing exactly. Our day isn't. Oh wow, that's impressive. It walks by, not as not taking the air out of the room. I've got a million of those to look at on my phone in front of me.
That's kind of my point.
Mhm.
You might see something that's really impressive, but all you got to do is turn 30 degrees and you're going to see one just as impressive. And, and there's tens of thousands of them nowadays. Where,
Saturation of great work.
yes, 1990s and 80s, you know, there was dozens, not 12,000.
Do
So,
you do you think the heroes come back?
nah, those days are gone. That cow left the barn, never coming back.
I left the barn, broke the fence.
Yeah, train left the station. So,
Okay.
uh,
Uh, are they in other aspects then? Um, growing. Do you see anything similar to the kind of feeling and air of the tattoo conventions? Maybe a smaller genre of anything. Do you see anything like that?
no, I've been to a few conventions. I went to one last weekend up in Hudson Valley, 200 booths. I probably knew, I don't know, maybe a dozen people.
how are you treated? Do people recognize you? I mean, it's our heroes like yourself. I didn't know who you were until I heard your name, and then I'm like, oh my God! And I kind of have some chagrin because I want to say, for me, God bless it, there are still heroes. I love it. And when I heard your name and then got a chance to be introduced to you, I felt like that, like I was in the presence of greatness. I don't know if that's silly, but I love the humility that you had even then. I'm curious, is it when you go to a show like last weekend, are you recognized? Do people um have the reverence that
Well,
they once did that I have?
sometimes, uh, and it's only because I've been on the road with this book tour for 5 years. I've visited thousands of shops, but for most part, I mean, and these are all traditional shops that I go to. I
Street
try to,
shops, as you would
yeah,
say.
I try to focus on the street shop traditional. But for everybody else, no, they don't know who I am. But I got a great story. When you and I were together, and I think it was DC about 5 or 6 years ago. Sound right?
Yes. Yeah. It felt like 2 to 3 years ago, but COVID, broke my
Yeah,
brain
no,
for remembering. So,
it was a while, and it was Piper, and he put me in the Ink Master row, which
okay.
I sold one book that weekend to Brian Everett because he felt sorry for me. But I people would come up in this one particular time. They came up. They said, "Hey, can I get my picture taken with you?" And I stood up and said, "Yeah, sure. Come on in." They walked right by me and went right over to you. So that kind of that summed it up in a nutshell. Like, yeah, maybe I'm pretty insignificant to a lot of these newcomers.
That
So,
hurts a little, brother.
oh, no, come on. I thought it was great. I tell that story all the time.
uh, well, oh God. It really does bothers me a bit. I usually try to make sure that people have reverence for those
Yeah,
people I have around, or at least understand my reverence for them. It does seem, and it's not that it hasn't happened at times. I've been in conversations with Tom, not excuse, Jack Rudy, and
yeah,
and Marshall Bennett, and I'm trying to think of the exact instances, but where people have come up and actually said, they said, what was it? I don't want to be rude. You mind if I interrupt you so I can get a photo? And the like to me, and I'm sure to them, is like I don't understand that aspect. You don't mean to be rude, but you're gonna.
yeah.
You are you are being rude, and it irks me a bit because I'm not here to be big around the people that were my heroes, that still are my heroes. I've been blessed, unlike many other people. Like most people have heroes from TV or something, and I was following the magazines. Those were my heroes. I never knew their faces. I always saw their work. You could
Yeah.
recognize these pieces, and even you'll probably remember the name Jeff Bartles, who figured out how to make tribal look like stonework, and it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to tribal. But he came
Uh,
into our shop one day, completely normal human being. I had no idea who he was. And then he pulled out some of his flash to sell. And the very first instinct I have is this guy's trying to sell me some bootleg stuff.
uh, oh,
Turns
I get
out,
that a lot.
mhm,
I get that often going into shops, like, hey, I'm JD Crowe, and it's, yeah, right. You so, but
well,
I
that's
get it.
something good because at least it's still, they know the name then. At least
Yeah,
those people are like, oh, yeah, official tattoo brand. Okay, so I suppose you've been doing this for like 50 years, huh?
yeah.
When did you first put a tattoo machine in your hand?
Oh, that was 74. Yeah, it was 2 years of just hanging and then, like I said, an informal apprenticeship.
where you're paying the money, watching somebody do a line, ask a question, he's ignoring you.
Well, no, that was earlier. That was 2 years. That was about 72
Okay.
to 74. By 74, I was in, and the
Hmm.
questions were getting answered. The guy I was apprenticing under was from Albany, and he worked with the Spaldings up there,
Okay.
uh, Tommy and Jay, and he knew Huck. So he called Huck and said, "Hey, I'm sending some youngster up there." I drove up to Huck. He was still tattooing in his house at the time. His tattoo, his,
Was this in New York?
yeah, and
It was
up.
illegal in New York State or city at the time too. Am I wrong?
No, it was legal in the state, just illegal in the city. But
Okay.
Huck was his supply business was in his 2-car garage back then.
Mhm.
So, anyways, that was my true start. When I came back, by 19, it was February of 76 that I printed my first business card.
Who is it that's getting tattooed in 76?
Uh,
Nowadays, I we get soccer moms and it runs the gamut.
yeah, no, I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, the world's largest naval installation. So I was tattooing,
Servicemen.
I was tattooing drunken sailors, fallen women. It was a whole different crowd, motorcycle people,
Mhm.
uh, uh,
Did
completely different. And back then, I would say 80% of my business was sailors, all
okay.
until the 90s. Then it started to twist a little bit, but
As
now,
people from different walks of life began getting tattooed.
yeah, by 80s, you had MTV
Hmm.
coming out, and MTV was putting tattoos in everybody's living room. Uh, and that started to change. Then you had the sports characters, they're all, when you're getting tattoos shown in people's living rooms, whether it's through basketball or, MTV, it's, people are thinking, oh, well, damn, you know,
Powerful.
yeah, I could think I can get one of them. I like that. So it changed. Uh,
I think tattoos have always been pretty powerful in that regard. And then as their platform gets bigger, now, yeah, the soccer moms, the factory workers,
yeah.
mostly blue collar people. As the shift changes, is it mostly blue collar people getting tattooed, or big wigs and doctors you're running into too?
Uh, back then it was like it was the blue collar crowd.
Hmm.
Uh, I used to say back then that smart people aren't getting tattooed. I'm stuck with all the drunks. But it changed. But the thing, in the 80s, my first mailing list that I got when I started Tattoo Flash, the official tattoo brand, was only 800 and something shops in the country. There's
Okay.
probably 2,000 around New York City right now.
Yes.
So
Oh my. Does
uh,
it does it falter
800,
at one point? Do you imagine it that this has been a steady increase, but it kind of peaked and it valleyed a little bit? At least in popularity or so. When we say 10,000 people show up to a convention, that doesn't happen anymore. And
no,
certainly not traveling from the distances um,
no.
of overseas and all. Well, I mean, not that they're not,
That,
but not
that
usually to attend.
that's because there's not 2 or 3 a year. There's
Mhm.
20 on a week all over the world. And I'm talking when I say 2 or 3 a year back then in the 70s and 80s, it was in the world. It
Yeah.
wasn't, there was only 1 or 2 conventions over in Europe at the time too. It was so we're talking about the world. The world would show up.
Do you imagine that tattoos themselves will become less popular at some point and more people will be picking to have clear skin?
Well, yeah, I tell people that you're not
Be
tattooed.
unique?
You should be rejoicing if you're not tattooed. Look, I got tattooed. My first tattoo was in the 60s. I got tattooed to be out. I wanted to be different, you know. So to have full arm sleeves back in the 70s was like you were different. You were out, you know. Now people get tattoos to be in. And I never wanted to be in. So like I said, if you're not tattooed, you're the different one now. So
Well, are you
rejoice.
thinking about lasering anything or
No, I tried that once. That didn't work. That's worse than getting a tattoo.
it does hurt quite a bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you getting lasered? Is it a good regret story or
No, no,
nobody's name?
you know how it is. You know, you just wanted to get more tattoos. So I had to get rid of one that was,
Mm-hmm.
20
In a
years old.
way.
Yeah. Uh, but
Well,
yeah.
yourself is tattooing 50 years and seeing its changes and riding the height of it at some point. I got to figure, was there a revelation of ever like a epiphany or look where I am at, where my hard work is paid off and how awesome it is? Or,
No, I never felt like that. I don't know, because I just worked all the time, you know. Uh,
ta- tattoo brand Flash, for those listeners who don't know, Flash was what's on the wall when you went into a tattoo shop. They're coming back. I see a lot more Flash at the tattoo conventions. I imagine they're at the walls at the shops too. People don't really like custom pieces. They don't mind that it's custom, but they don't need it custom for them. They really seem to be like to told, the majority of people like to be told, here are your choices, pick it.
yeah,
And so I think I see it coming back to Flash being popular right now, as where there was a time when if you weren't doing custom work, there was an idea of ego, that you weren't fulfilling.
yeah. Here's the scoop that what I see nowadays, and these big custom pieces take a long time to do. They're appointments. You're booked up 6 months out. Some guys are booked up, a year or two out. For most people, a tattoo is just an impulse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they want to walk in somewhere and get a tattoo and, go on their merry way. Uh, the phones, normally a phone would ring, and this is pre-COVID. First thing they want to do is, what are your hours? They want to know when they can walk into your shop and walk out. After COVID, it was, do you take walk-ins? So things changed a lot, but there's a lot of shops that are like, yes, we take walk-ins, and those shops are busy as hell
Yeah.
because they don't want to wait 6 months to get a tattoo. They're not interested in getting their whole leg done. They just want some cameo, something they're pulling
Mm-hmm.
off. Uh,
I wonder if that's a lack of hero somewhat too, as when you would get tattooed by somebody, you'd be like, yeah, I got tattooed by this person. He's a hero. I like him. And now maybe the tattoo like that you can just pick up and get on your lunch break, that is more about you than who did the tattoo.
yeah, I guess. And I'm not trying to turn the podcast around to you, but I mean,
Mm.
you would know a little bit more in your circles. Do people search out certain people? And it's these new school guys or whatever, if you even got a name. I don't know why you call me old school. I'm just tattoo school. I'm reformed. But I mean, are
Yeah, I
there
don't.
heroes in your business on your side? I mean,
For me, there definitely are. To be honest, most of them are like yourself, from my past, and I tend to stay off of the Instagram and stuff because I think it hurts me. It makes me think I'm that I do those tattoos, or it makes me want to tattoo like somebody else, which just doesn't make me happy at the end of the day. So I stay off it. However, yeah, I do see a wide variety of customer. And I think where in the circles that I'll travel in that have the higher echelon kind of, I don't mean to say that in a conceited way, but in what people regard as like, oh, that's so and so, you know. So in that, they do get sought out. But
Uh-huh.
at the tattoo conventions, I'm seeing a real big return to just flash. I want to pick it off. I have no care about who does it. I just want
Yeah.
them to do good work. But I think people kind of just expect you to do good work now too.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of gotten easier.
You got to
It,
be good nowadays. But see, that's the whole thing, like with this Richmond show.
mm,
Now, if Jesse filled the room, which he does with all the people that, been on TV, these
well, he
guys
fills
are,
it with the hero tattoo artists too. Some of the best in the world is as far as actual work. Thankfully,
with, yeah, but that whole, not that old school, traditional guy, but
mm,
with what's going on today. But the problem I see is when you go to one of those conventions, all these superstars are all lined up. They bring three people with them. They work on those three people all 3 days.
mm,
Nobody else can get tattooed because everybody's brought their clients from home to show off.
mm.
Uh, and what
Trophy
I'm
hunting sometimes.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
Trophy hunting some like they might bring a
Well,
stacked
yeah, yes, exactly. It's,
somebody with 8 of my tattoos. I'm going to work on them this weekend. We're going to enter that for best of show and best of day. And then this person is going to take breaks throughout the whole day to go and enter in best black and gray, large color, and all different
yeah,
categories.
you got it. So, and what it does, I mean, when the public comes, they're kind of bummed out because you may get 1,000 people through the door and, 400 of them are looking to get a tattoo, but they can't. So I'm trying to work with Richmond to get people that are doing flash style, traditional, so if we can bring in 1,500, 2,000 people a day, there's going to
They
be
can get tattooed.
a bunch of booths there with people ready to go. So, anyways,
Anybody that you're excited about having at the Richmond Tattoo Convention?
um, well, I got Doug Hardy coming out. Uh,
A
Ed,
relation to Ed, then.
Ed's kid. He's still running Tattoo City. Ed, I don't know. I'm kind of going to bug Doug to see if he could get Ed out there, but I doubt if that'll happen. But I got Sean Barber coming out and Corey
Oh,
Miller,
wow.
uh, Jack
That's
Rudy,
exciting.
Time Charlie, Eddie Deutsch,
Good Time Charlie's coming out, or Jack Rudy from Good Time Charlie?
both
Oh,
Jack
my God.
Cartwright. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I got quite a few people. Dana Brunson's going to be there. I don't know. There's a list. I got about 25 or to 30. I got Schweiger and Mike Perfetto. Uh, just good old names that have been tattooing, for 25 and 30 years.
Are are they coming booked up, or do they have the ability to tattoo clients?
I'm pretty sure that none of these guys are going to be bringing people with them. They're coming here to do tattoos. They can tattoo their clients at home, and they're not out here to show off.
Yeah.
Guys are going to be. They don't need trophies.
hmm Is it? Does it become then? I imagine at one point, for me, it is at least. I guess I don't. I'm sorry to get so excited that I'm stuttering over myself. But for me, I feel the longer I've been in tattooing, I find the tattoo about connecting or communicating or communing with people almost more important than any other aspect of it. Is that what you think they're finding too? Like if Jack Rudy comes out and he's gonna just take somebody out of the audience to tattoo instead of book himself up.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about Jack. Jack's a character all to his own.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I have seen him do just that, where
Yeah,
people have walked up just to get a tattoo and be like, "You're not working." And he's like, "Nah, I'm here for you."
yeah,
And they end up getting a cool ass skull or something.
yeah.
He talks to him for a long time. It takes it's a Jack Rudy tattoo is an experience. I more
It
from
is.
my witnessing than it is. I mean, not to say the artwork. I'm not trying to down that, obviously, but it is also an experience.
It is. And Jack, like I said, is a character all to his own. So, but
What?
yeah,
Mhm.
people are coming to tattoo. They're coming to tattoo like they tattoo at home. Their door's always open. You come in, you look around. What do you want? What arm? Have a seat. I'll be with you in a minute. You know, uh, that I see as a, today, a freaking tattoo is a complicated thing. You get somebody walk in, and all of a sudden it's like, they'll waltz you up and down the room for hours before you even start anything. And the problem is, again, Kyle, I told you this iPhone. These people come in. It used to be when tattoo artists ran the shop. You owned your shop. You had all the answers. People would come in and have to ask you questions. Now these customers come in, they're smarter than you are. They know more about what's going on than you do.
Well, that's not really even possible. I hope we're right.
not not according to them.
Okay, a
Um,
customer is right kind of a situation. They're
yeah, well,
always right.
I never believed that.
No, in our industry, it certainly wasn't that way, but now I imagine it's harder to convince them of that because they come in with their iPhone and they're like, "I'll Google it."
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: the customer always right. Well, their mistakes are hard to erase when it comes to a tattoo. So, you know,
Yes.
maybe not. Maybe they're not always right. So you got to keep them in check. But either way, it's a different, completely different world.
You mentioned
Hope,
a name, Dana Brunson, and
yes.
I just run into a tattoo that he had done, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it was older than that. It was awesome to run into this, and it was like I could pick out the era that it was picked in. You could see it. It was like a '90s eight kind of a dragon.
Uh huh.
Awesomely done. So and like beautiful work. Um, he's coming to tattoo as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dana will be there. I don't know. I
It's
got it
it's a
on my computer. I can't. You
Oh no,
know.
it's a fucking treasure trove. It's a who's who greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, 30 years ago in Richmond, it was Mike Malone, Zeke Owen, Ed Hardy, Lyle Tuttle, we Don Nolan. We can't get those guys now, but a few of us
Some of them aren't with us, right?
that are 25, 30, 40, and 50-year tattooers, it's going to be a good time.
Any of your favorite stories that you could? I think I should probably let you get on to your day, but if you wouldn't mind regaling us with any of your favorite story of any of these heroes that you've had close proximity to.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I just did a book. I just
Oh,
wrote a
let's
biography.
talk about this. That'll
Yeah,
give me that. And then I can let you go because honestly, you've been on a book tour for 5 years now, anyways.
yeah, with just the artwork. What
Hmm.
I've in fact, when we had met in DC, I was just beginning it. And this is one great tale, with the convention. And I sat there all weekend and sold one book to Brian Everett. Again, I almost believe because he felt sorry for me.
Well,
But on my
also, who is an
home,
icon in the industry? I hope that
yeah,
doesn't get missed by the audience. That Brian
no,
Everett, someone who is a master, sees you and says, "Yeah, I'll get that book." And Brian doesn't typically do that style of tattooing either.
no, because this was, well, I don't know. Yeah, Brian, his claim is, that fine line.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but again, on my way home, I was selling my tattoo shops at the time. I had five of them, and one of the guys in Richmond, Virginia, was interested, but I'd already sold the shop, so I wanted to stop in and just tell him, "Hey, uh, shop's gone. Thanks for the interest."
Mm-hmm.
I went and all the guys in the shop, they bought like $500 worth of books. I'm like,
Nice.
oh shit, maybe I got this all wrong with these conventions. I went down the street, down to Lucky 13. They
Mm-hmm.
800. I stopped in five shops in Richmond and went home with like almost 3 grand in book sales.
What do you
And
think the difference? Because it
well,
seems like that same clientele would be at the tattoo convention.
no, I went to just traditional, solid
Street
shops that
shop.
went around long street shop. Yep. And the conventions I was sitting, there might have been 200 booths. I knew Brian Everett, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, so nobody knew me. I didn't know anybody. They didn't have a clue. Uh, so, anyways, that's what started the whole on the road thing. The next week I went down to North Carolina, and then week after that, I don't know, up to Pennsylvania. And it's been working out pretty good. It's like being on vacation all the time.
And
Um,
wake up in a new state and go and
yeah,
see how that state's going to treat you, how those
yeah,
shops are going to treat you.
yeah. And I mean, as much as I diss the iPhone, all I
Hmm.
do is a Google search for tattoo shops in whatever town I'm in. 30 of them pop up, and I narrow it down to like 4 or 5
Okay.
traditional street shops. So,
Hmm.
it's been working out. But
You
back
peruse
to
their
the book,
website then, kind of stalk them a bit.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I look for flash on the walls. That's my number one thing. If
can
there's flash,
people buy your, I'm sorry, to cut you off. I do not mean to, but can people buy your book online as well?
well, it's a biography. It's actually the title of the book is "The Flash That Was Seen Around the World," and it's about kind of my beginnings on through developing all the official tattoo brand and getting in all the other, the tattoo art T-shirts and the books and.
Well, this
But
is
it's
way
at
different than your last book tour then, which was
oh
artwork hand
right,
to artist.
right, the all the other books, and I got like 45 of them or something now. It's all artwork, a lot of it from the 80s and 90s, and some newer stuff. But this book, the biography book, is a lot of type, and I talk about a lot of the stuff that happened, through all them 50
Is it
years.
out and published yet then too?
Uh, I'm the publisher, so it's self-published, and I dropped it off at the printers like 2 weeks ago. So I'm hoping by the end of the month I can have it back.
That's very exciting.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
a really,
very exciting.
really cool book, and I
Where
got
can we purchase? I'm hoping there's online sales, right? I'm really that lazy. I apologize, but I'm that lazy.
yeah. Now, of course, I'll have it with my travels, but
Mhm.
it's at tattoo-art.com. That's my online site. So
I find that the dash is important.
yeah, as you know,
I missed the dash tattoo dash art.com.
I
I
was
didn't.
gonna say something when I said it's not here yet. Did you
Uh,
forget Ash? But you beat me to it.
well, I told my wife, I think I said slash, and she thought that I was saying backslash. As you know, everything changes in linguistics over time. So what used to be the pound sign is now the hashtag, and
Yeah. I don't know
everything
what to
different.
call that. Is it a dash or a hyphen? So it's either or.
Yes, Well, and if you go over to England, it's a stroke.
And I did that in 1995. That's when I created my website. And it was so brand new that the guy helping me put the hyphen in. And I've hated it ever since, thinking
Have
I
you
could have been just tattoo art, one word. But
have you attempted to just get you can get the domain possibly for tattoo art or not?
yeah, no, that thing,
That's
it's
so
seen it once before for sale for like 20 grand or something. And
oh good Lord.
the world knows who I am. And,
Mhm.
things like that just aren't that important anymore. Now, 30 years ago, I wish I would have done it. But, anyways,
Yeah.
I've had this dash since 1995. So, and now
Right on. So now it's like the tattoos that you're not going to have lasered off. They're
I'm
just there.
not going to lay that dash off.
Man, I'm looking forward to reading um and also having people know that this is available for them to read and get a little bit of history and know the shoulders you're standing on so that you can hope to have some kids standing on your shoulders one day, you know?
That would be it, create some heroes again, have people in this business, Uh, anyways,
I love
and
it.
again, the big thing, if any of your listeners out there in October 20 through 22, man, just come on out to this convention, Richmond, Virginia. It's going to be
Going
one show, and I'm not done lining people up. I'm
no.
going to have to
And
film.
Jesse's been telling pumping this up to me for some time about the people he has shown. I mean, it is a treasure trove of history and of the greatest artists that are tattooing today.
Yeah, the sad part is, well, the hotel thing, man, I always did my conventions in hotels. It's more personal, you can sit around at night and uh, rather than having to leave your hotel and go to a convention hall somewhere, stand around concrete all day.
Hurt your
Um,
feet.
yeah, I mean, the hotel thing is just not to sound sappy, but it's quaint. It's really close and personal. So this Richmond show should be a real good one. Only thing is, I wish we had a third floor.
You
We
have
got,
that much fun packed into the two floors you have now, then.
yeah, we need more room, but I mean, we're gonna make the best with what we got.
Kind of a good problem to have. Quainter. It just keeps getting quainter then.
Yeah, yeah.
More personal. Well, I wish you all the success with it, JD Crowe, and especially your biography.
Yeah,
I look forward to getting a hold of
yeah.
that and reading it. And
Uh, I'll
I'm going
send
to
you
reach
a
out
text.
to you. What's that?
Oh, sorry, I'll send you a text once I get it back from the printer. So
Superstar.
anybody, on my phone list, I send them a text. And what I did, if this is the coolest part of the book. I've
Mhm.
had hundreds of people send in comments and quotes, and hundreds of people are scattered through the book with comments about official tattoo brand, comments about tattoo tour, quotes about this, and people that worked for me. Like
Mhm.
really the interesting format. So
My favorite quote of all time comes from Jack Rudy. It was, if you're looking for me, I'm not there. I'll show up soon enough. It will be well worth the wait.
yeah, like
Did he give you any quotes for your book too then? I got to figure it's in there.
no, I can pick up the phone. I did just a couple of weeks ago.
Mhm.
Pick up the phone. I'll call Jack at like, I don't know, 10 at night, my time. I'm still on the phone with him for 2 hours, 3 hours, 2 in the morning. It's like, finally, Jack, God, I got to go. But I think he gave me three individual quotes, like a one liner about different things. So,
That's
uh,
he's one of the greatest for it. I watched his roast of Guy Atkinson. He was spot on. That guy's a full on riot. He is, he's a comedy show. You just gotta give him the right prompt sometimes. Ask him about aliens.
Yeah, right.
That's why I tell people, oh, you meeting Jack? Oh, ask him about aliens.
Yeah, politics.
Or yeah, just sit back and enjoy. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
get a drink. JD Crowe, thanks for being a part of this.
Well,
Um,
and
mhm.
hey, by the way, uh, are you going to Richmond? Are you one of the booth holders?
I am not currently. I've worked out a
Eh,
couple of things, but I've had a hard time.
where are you
I'm in
hanging?
Michigan. And that weekend we've got another show where the guy always treats me so good I couldn't. It would just it's a burning bridges kind of an option for me. So um I apologize for not being able to be a part of it.
Well,
We are trying to make it a part of our tours though in the future.
yeah, it goes back to that. There's three or four or a half a dozen shows every weekend. Uh,
Yes,
I
yes.
a couple other guys that I really wanted to show up, but same thing. Oh man, I've already booked a place. I go there
Hmm.
every year. So. But
Yeah,
anyways,
I've
let's
talked to a friend that's having one that same weekend around you guys, and I tried to convince him otherwise, and
uh-huh.
as you know, it's getting to be what I call a crowded dance floor for the
Yep.
tattoo conventions, and it is there isn't a fortunateness to it because um, certainly all the history and all the fun is somewhere, and then the money's another sometimes, or well, for me in this case. But
Gotcha.
thanks for being a part of this. I don't. One thing I wanted to mention is one reason I'm doing this, and not that I wouldn't have you on ever, because you do me a huge favor. But one reason I wanted to make this a point of doing it is because I'm excited about the show. I really am. It's genuine. Everything that I say and talk to you about is genuine, and I want to see it do good. And I just couldn't be a part of it this year, but I
Yeah.
really do want to see it succeed, so that in the years in the future, I do have more of a chance to come in and hang out with Corey Miller, with
Yeah.
yourself, with Jack Rudy, with Dana Brunson, with like you actually you
Uh,
full me. I'm full of sadness right
yeah.
now.
Well, I got something else up my sleeve too. I'm not going to reveal it yet, but I'll keep you posted. Uh,
This has been a long career for you. Are already of hard work.
yeah. So uh, I want to get on the road again and to start pushing the book tour thing, but for the
Awesome.
most part, the next thing I got going on is a little bit different, and I'll know more as the weeks go by if it's going to happen. But anyways, people will
Well,
know when it does.
you have a continual platform to ever push anything that you ever want to push here,
Cool.
and so please do let me know when you reveal this magic trick up your sleeve,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'll be happy to try and push it out to the rest of our audience.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. You probably won't be the first to know, but you'll be in the top 10, I'll say.
Oh, okay, right on. Top 10 exclusive is just fine for the straight to the point and completely off topic podcast. It's
Got it.
thank you so much for being a part of
Okay,
this
man.
again, JD.
See you.
We'll
Hope
talk
to
to you
see
later.
you. Yep. Bye.
All right, bye. That was awesome.